Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line podcast. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
Jeff, I got me a sweet peach seltzer. This is my version of garage beers. I'm drinking it in my basement, hanging out with you, ready to talk about an album that was not released. It escaped and has a lot of great lore and even better tunes. So, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I am doing so well, and I am so excited to talk about this album. So we are obviously talking about the Johnny Blue Skies and the Dark Clouds new album, Mutiny After Midnight. And so this is Sturgill Simpson project is Johnny Blue Skies. And I don't know if it's going to be like from now on under the Johnny Blue Skies name, like the Dark Clouds are going to be like the E Street Band for him. Like who knows, or if it's going to change like every album and he'll just call them something else. But this album was hotly anticipated, especially after Sturgill's like recent run of touring. There was a lot of like you said, a lot of lore behind this one. So kind of what are you familiar with as far as that lore goes?
So, I mean, I guess I need to turn into like a mailing list guy or a more online guy because I got the intel that there was a new album coming from you. You posted it in our group chat with Tanner and Reno, and that was the first inkling I had that anything was coming. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be a physical only release. So, okay, interesting. Keep an eye on that. Um, and I didn't sense that there was going to be anything super remarkable or different about that strategy. But as it turns out, there's quite a bit about the release strategy that you and I were talking about before we went on, which is like a synthesis of it would be the not the point of why it exists, because the reason it exists and the thought behind it is totally different, and we'll get into that. But an added benefit of it is it's a big giant fuck you to streaming services. The
Mhm.
way that Sturgill Simpson, or I guess JBS, I'll do him the courtesy of saying JBS, because that's how he'd like it to be. I watched a video and he talked about why he started doing that. He's like, I felt like my name had become monetized, didn't really belong to me anymore.
Mhm.
And I named myself after this guy that used to stand outside of a bar in a trench coat, flicking his Zippo. And every time he saw me, he was like, Johnny Blue Skies. And
Mhm.
I don't know what the fuck it means, but that's what I decided to call myself. So, like, great piece of lore dropped right there. So I'll say JBS, but this it became very clear very quickly that there was a totally unconventional and chaotic, and also in a certain instance, like terrible rug pulling release scheme to it. The live stream is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
That was cold, but then obviously 4 hours later paid off. So I don't mean to be vague, but I want to give you a chance to talk about it. So
So the I so Sturgill is a throughout the Sturgill Simpson named albums. I kind of got into it, and I think we both got into it at the same time with the Sailor's Guide to Earth album that we got while we were here in Austin. It really it kind of changed. It was one of the most like fresh kind of new things that I'd ever heard. Like it was immediately captivating. Still one of my favorite albums ever. And then so he kind of made his name changing it up. So the first album was kind of just straight up like kind of honky tonkin' two stepping kind of country music. Extremely good in that sense. Think like Waylon Jennings, kind of artists like that, just very much that outlaw style of country. Then he goes to Better Modern Sounds, which gets to that kind of like psychedelic country sort of style, the acid country, and then Sailor's Guide to Earth, and then Sound and Fury, and then he does Dude and Juanita. And then he does Cutting Grass, Volume 1 and 2, where he does all of those songs. Well, I guess before Dude and Juanita, does all those songs as like bluegrass songs instead. Like he just does what he wants to do. And then he decided he's done being called Sturgill Simpson for the reasons that you said, becomes Johnny Blue Skies, comes out with Passage du Desire. Fantastic, phenomenal album that we also reviewed on an earlier show of this podcast. So go back and check that out too. And then he went on this tour and went into his full-on like Grateful Dead era. And that's where it comes in of like the kind of the release schedule of this album and kind of how everything has been getting rolled out. So he starts out on Friday, you know, the pre-sale happens, people order their vinyls, and then I think it was like a week later or something like that, all of a sudden he posts that he put 10 copies of the album on vinyl in 10 different record stores throughout the country. And so he said go find them, and he didn't say which record stores had them or anything like that. People just had to like call around. So I'm sure a lot of record stores got a lot of business from people just walking in looking for that album, which kind of number one cool thing about this whole idea is like bringing back physical media is kind of forcing people back into those stores. And maybe they don't realize that all of their favorite albums that are coming out these days are also coming out on vinyl. Maybe they want a record player. Maybe they want that real physical, like visceral experience. And I think that's part of what he's doing with this. I'm surprised he didn't come out with an 8-track. If there was some company that was still producing 8 tracks at the volume he would need to make, I bet you he would have. Because this album also would have been perfect on an 8-track with how it sounds. So he does this thing. Everybody goes out and finds these albums. And then throughout the rest of, I think that was Friday, throughout the rest of Friday and Saturday, everybody's like waiting with bated breath for someone to like rip this stuff to the internet and start sharing it around. And that's where it gets to. I think that's kind of JBS's whole point. You know, I think that's the idea, is that he wants it to be not just about like the music and it being cool to get the vinyl and all that kind of thing, because I don't get the sense that's the case. Like everybody's going to be able to get a vinyl. Like maybe you'll get this color or that color, but everybody's going to be able to get a vinyl. And the idea is everybody just is in the same place awaiting this, is in the same place being excited for this. And I think it's also the confidence that JBS has these days that he's going to fucking deliver on that. So we moved to Sunday. Nobody's leaked this thing. On the Instagram for Johnny Blue Skies, they post like something like dance party 12 Eastern, like be there. So I don't know how many thousands of people. I was at work, so I couldn't like check and see. I don't know if you have the numbers on that, but I would assume it's probably at least several hundred, if not thousands of people that logged in to see this, and he rickrolls everybody. So they all log in to hear this album, which is of course what he thinks is they are all going to be there for, and rickrolls them. Just an absolute rug pull. And later that day, maybe 3 hours later, 4 hours later, something says, I just posted the whole fucking thing on YouTube. Go find it. And that's where we're at now. Mad scramble to YouTube. Do you have the YouTube up? Can you pull it up and see how many views that video has, or that like album has now?
I don't have it up. I'll get it up. I want to say, if memory serves, it was at like 700K. Am I off?
It's probably about right.
Close. 649K.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was close.
Yeah. Insane.
Insane. And again, like the playfulness of, you know, doing the Willy Wonka, I got the golden ticket, I got the Sturgill Simpson in my like a fun idea. Like I experienced that once with Mitski Laurel Hell, except it was not sanctioned by Mitski. The record store employee was new and gave it to me 4 days early. But like the thrill of the Easter egg hunt, and the fact that nobody who had their copy leaked it, I think like you can look at that either way and go, that was very cool of them not to do that. But at the same time, I think if they had, I think Sturgill wasn't going to do anything about it. I think it was kind of like half of this is evil genius and half of it is the Joker. Like, I just want to watch the world burn.
Yes, I think that's a huge part of it, is he wants to see, I think a part of him wants to see like what kind of influence he can have on the music industry. I think he wants to see what kind of buttons he can push, like what kind of leverage he can create for himself. And I think the Easter egg hunt part of it is a really fun thing for him. But I think he did want, because he ended up leaking it himself.
Yeah, and it's just,
I'm sure as soon as somebody like put it up or like tried to live stream it, he probably would have been like, here's the YouTube link. So he wouldn't have let somebody else probably like get a ton of the shine from it or monetize it off of that. But he's like, because he's played with Grateful Dead recently, like he played with Dead and Company, you know, so it's like he's involved in that world. And like if you've been to any of his shows in the last couple of years, like you can see clearly that's the style and kind of way he's going. It's still got his flavor all over it, but he's doing a lot more of the jam band kind of stuff, like bleeding one song into another. And he does that on this album too. Is like there's a lot of these things where there's callbacks to Sound and Fury. There's callbacks to Sailor's Guide to Earth on this. Like as
High
far as
Top Mountain.
yeah, like the melodies he uses, and like every album I've realized, and I think I saw pointed out actually, every album has something to do with a planet. Like there's a song like on the last album was Jupiter's Fairy. On this one, what is where's my
Venus.
track list here? Venus. On like Sailor's Guide to Earth, like Earth. There's every album has a planet that he references, and like one of the song titles is just like kind of funny, like, but what does it mean? And I think that's just part of the joy now of being a fan of Johnny Blue Skies, FKA Sturgill Simpson.
And yeah, I think he kept, like, even up to the release of it, he kept it fun and interesting. And I I think it's kind of, you bring up Grateful Dead, and it's true. I saw him, it'll be 2 years ago in November, and played for 3.5 hours without breaks, and teased doing China Cat Sunflower and didn't pay it off. Talk about a rug pull. I digress. But like there are a lot of similarities to, and I don't want to overstate the Dead's influence or his interest in them, but very similar strategy for him as them with the tape traders, where the record company was like, no, you can't let people come in and tape the show. It'll hurt album sales. And Jerry Garcia was like, we could be cops or we could just let them do it. And as far as I'm concerned, when I'm done playing the music, I'm done with it. You can have it.
Mhm.
And it became a brilliant strategy because every version was going to be different. And they made a ton of money on ticket sales from touring. And it wasn't even like an evil genius capitalism thing. It just worked out in their favor because they were doing something different. And it wasn't all about just like hammering sales of American Beauty down people's throats. So it feels like a similar strategy adopted here by Sturgill, and also like a similar, like getting into the album itself, a similar kind of approach. I forget who said it, but it's a really salient point, and they maybe meant it in a more negative way than I would agree with. But what's the difference between Grateful Dead jams and Allman Brother jams? Allman Brothers forced it, Grateful Dead found it. And I think you can hear that on this album for sure,
Mhm.
because the way that it was written was, it all started with a groove, and we are going to be sure to shout out every single member of the Dark Clouds, um because this in many ways is their album. It's their coming out, and also like the groove sets the tone,
Mhm.
and everybody fell in around it, and Sturge made up his lyrics pretty much on the spot. And that's why I think a lot of them turn out like stronger than others.
Mhm.
Um, lyrically, this one is not like necessarily pound for pound up to the standard of what he usually writes. And I don't even necessarily think that's bad, because I like the rough and the free form and the intuitive, and then also like adding these kind of more thought out components along the way, like some of the like zinger lines that we'll get to.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's so much more than even like a jam album. You hear the jam roots to it and like how these songs were born. And you really get to see this whole new disco, funk, dance, cosmic country, psychedelic, cosmic gumbo thing that he has going on here. It's another shift in the sound. Yes, you hear like influences from the older albums, but it's a new dimension for JBS. And the fact that it leaked and it lived up to expectations, it made me break my one rule. It made me break my little vinyl spending freeze to get my hands on it, because if it does wind up being limited quantities of solely physical media, if he ever yanks it off YouTube,
Mhm.
there you go. So I think this was like a teased experience that lived up to the promise of it paid off.
Yes, and for me, it was I think the first influence you hear is Sound and Fury, I think that just really kind of funky, more rock focused kind of sound just brings me straight back to that. Certainly more than any of the other albums that he's done. But then you have saxophone all over this, like you had on Sailor's Guide to Earth. And then I think the albums that you hear probably the least influence on this one is probably like High Top Mountain or Ballad of Dude and Juanita. I think you hear, you still hear some, like he does callbacks to basically every album that he's done so far, whether it be melody lines or, kind of little lyrical snippets, things like that. I think what I'm not going to try to like claim what he's trying to do, but I like what he's trying to do. I'm not going to try to like put it in a box and like define it because I'm not sure even he would. I think he's just doing what he feels like is the right thing to do with his music. And it would be kind of funny if he leaves it up on YouTube for now. And then as soon as the physical copies get released to stores and shipped out to the people that pre-ordered it, like he takes it back off of YouTube. It'd be funny if he did that. And he's like, yeah, if you want to hear this again, go get the CD or the tape or the vinyl.
Well, and the thing is, if you make a limited run of the physical media and then you take it off of, like, if you never want to stream it on Spotify, whatever, YouTube has even worse returns for the artist. But I mean, it depends on, are you kind of trying to create a rarity? I don't think that matters to him as much as like I think again, like the principle of the way streamers get their
Yeah.
fucking hands in your ass wallet.
I think he wants his music accessible, but
Yeah.
he doesn't want to be screwed over for that to happen.
And I think, you certainly, you do have to earn money, and you certainly make your nut off of everyone who pre-orders, and you can afford to do it in this unconventional way and prove the viability of something like this, and like a lot of steam behind it. And to a certain extent, when you do kind of create a rarity, you increase like the legend of it as well. Like, I love this guy Tatsuya Shita. He does not allow any of his shit on streaming. He's like, it all needs to be on physical media. It's the way it's meant to be listened to. You've got to purchase it on vinyl or CD and listen to it that way. I refuse to license it for streaming. The album Big Wave, the fact that I can't listen to that on Spotify or YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere, absolutely guts me. It's one of the best things I've ever heard. Japanese yacht rock, and it rules. It is so good. I would love to do an episode about it someday.
Okay.
But that's another conversation.
Well, what you can do, because I have a CD player, I have a stereo system, so I can certainly do that. I just need to find it.
Get your hands on it. It's hard to find. But
yeah. So
my point being with all that is just like, what he's done is like, regardless of the quality, and it's quality, but he created an experience and he created a legend. And you don't get that from like the new Sabrina Carpenter. Like, she could afford to, I guess, despite the fact that like the record company's got its fingers in the pie, and wouldn't allow it. But like, I don't think she'd send her fans on a sexy scavenger hunt like Sturge did. So
yeah, and it's funny because I just know he enjoyed it. He enjoyed doing that whole thing as much as he enjoyed making these records and these songs. And I think that's what probably comes through the most is you can tell this is exactly the music that he wants to be making. And maybe next album that changes and the music adapts. It's something else entirely, like he's kind of gone through stages of his whole career. But with every album that I've listened to from him, it's like that's exactly the music that he wants to be making. And I think that's what shines through with artists like him, with artists like Tyler Childers, with the people that we really just always kind of extol the virtues of on this show. And they just make the music that they want to be making. Like the Grateful Dead, a great example. Like there's a lot of people that probably will just never get into it. I'm probably among that. I'll never like hate it, but of all jam bands, Grateful Dead is probably the best one. But it's like it's a certain kind of person that when they get into it, they get into it. And I think that's the kind of person that he wants as fans. He wants the people that are there for the new moments, the exciting moments, the evolution, of the whole thing. He wants people along for that ride because that's what he wants to do. And I think throughout this album, you hear how excited they all are to make this. Like, and you were right to shout out the Dark Clouds because they are absolutely fantastic on this album. I think the way that they build all of these songs, like into these grooves. I mean, you start out with the song "Make America Fuck Again." Like, what a fantastic song! And you think like, oh, okay, that's just a joke title, but it's like, no, you realize that among many things, he was a horn dog on this album, and we
Th-
started right off with this one.
yeah, this is a horny protest album. The I read the kind of rather long dissertation about like the inspiration behind it and the goal behind it, and in essence, it's to respond to kind of the darkness in our world right now, and certainly our country, but to also offer as a counterexample like the light and the love and the joyful things. And most of the joyful things apparently revolve around fucking. So it's a horny protest album. You have your requisite fuck Trump songs, and then you have your gnarliest, sweatiest of boner jams. And like you when you say like this is the music that they want to make, that JBS and the Dark Clouds want to make, absolutely. And I think they didn't like overdo it. I think you let the groove drive it, you build off of that. Don't fuck around with it that much. And I think the composition of it reflects it. You don't look at this and be like, wow, this was like, you can tell when something's being like over tinkered with. It's authentic, but it's above the neck authenticity. This is way below the neck authenticity. And it wears a lot of different influences on its sleeve without falling into the trap of like, I'm trying to make this recognizably Seeger or Marvin Gaye or Junk or Funkadelic or Daft Punk. Like, not trying to be like, look at me, this is what I'm doing, but certainly carrying over all of the things that like make that stuff so unique and make it work. And I think this is when we have to shout out our friends, because this really was, for me, the coming out party for the band.
Mhm.
The JB Passage du Désir, definitely great album, but that was more of, I think, the hype around we're going to discover who and what JBS is.
Yeah.
Is this a Chris Gaines situation or what? And I just want to shout out our four friends: the guitarist, Lore Joe Metz. I don't know how you pronounce the last name. I'm going to say Joe Metz. Keyboardist Robbie Kroll, bassist Kevin Black, and drummer Miles Miller. They are the lifeblood of this thing. It's a JBS joint, but these are the people that without this crew playing as an in sync with one another as you can tell that they are on the recording, this doesn't work nearly as well.
Mm-mm. And I just want to make sure. I think they were given different names on the YouTube page.
Yeah, they
So
have little nicknames. What were they?
yeah, so we had Johnny Blue Skies. Obviously, it's Sturgill. Little Joe is the rhythm and lead and slide guitar. Black Daddy is bass. Easy Lovin' is drums, and Rob B is the keys and saxophone. Like, you could tell there was one goal for this, is protest music and boning. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many times when, because I can't honestly remember too many times where like Sturgill was very graphic about anything like that. He's never like held back on anything he wants to sing about or say in a song, but I just can't remember on any of the subject matter, if anything, like "Stay on that D baby till you hit that G." Can't remember if there was anything like that he's done on previous albums, but he's obviously talking about, people may have one idea about what that is, but he's obviously talking about the note D, or the chord D, and it resolves to the G, so that's in there playing music. So he's telling the band what to do.
Clearly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's no other entendre you could infer into that.
No.
But in all seriousness, how brilliant is that? That like
Yeah.
You know, you're
They
come
do.
on, stay on the D to hit that G, and then it literally the chords are resolving along with. I mean, like, come the fuck on, man. That's a nice little
That's what
treat.
that's what he's trying to get you to do.
That's and I did, and I did. I did and I G'd, and it was great.
Yeah, and so you have like you have to stay on that, and it's just like a funk song. Like they're just fantastic funk song. Right before that you have "Don't Let Go," which is probably the most countryest song, probably the most like he did on like Passage du Désir or Sailor's Guide to Earth. And there's and like throughout the whole thing, I love those callbacks, and I can't like because it's hard. It's all on YouTube and it's all one track. Like I've probably listened to it 4 times, but as far as like which song pulls from which previous song of his, it happens like 4 or 5 different times in this album where he like does all these callbacks, and people are like stringing it back to shows that they saw of him playing that song from the previous album live, and then like kind of doing a little bit of this version that was going to be on this album like as part of it, and people started to pick up on that he was teasing something. So like he's been leaving these breadcrumbs about what was going to be going on with this album for quite a while, I think. It's just you have the songs like "Stay on That." You have "Make America Fuck Again," obviously. Was it "Situation," another one that's he doesn't hold back on that. But then he's got the protest songs like "Everyone Is Welcome," "Ain't That a Bitch," so it's like you hear that's much more of that like high top mountain attitude where it's like that protest feeling. And so it's like you get every kind of like best version of Sturgill on this. Maybe evolving into Johnny Blue Skies was exactly what he needed, because this is some of like the best work that he's done.
Well, JBS caught the woke mind virus, if you ask me. I mean, yeah, there's strong language, and like to be honest, I don't have like a high tolerance for the "Make America Blank Again" riffs. Like the
Yeah.
one that I do like is "Make America Grateful Again." Like that's my one that I like grandfather in for obvious reasons. Your boy's a little baby deadhead, but I the scathing political stuff, like as audacious and not like Doja Cat or Immortal Technique graphic, but the more bawdy, shall we say, references in some of these songs and some of the horny songs, just as like scathing and like shocking in their own way, are the political songs. Like "Make America Fuck Again" has these references to "I'm a sensitive boy when push comes to shove. I got that Hunter Biden energy. I'll make a hooker fuck around and fall in love." And
That's
it's like
incredible.
that's incredible to then flip around to the next song, "Excited Delirium," which is just like insanely intense. Like the lyrics are insanely intense.
Mhm.
We're talking about George Floyd. We're talking about Breonna Taylor, or that's at least was my inference in the second verse, but could just as easily be like people detained by ICE, like commenting up to the minute on the politics of the day, and doing it against this like full throttle Bob Seger style song.
Mhm.
He's all over the place in the best possible way, and he just doesn't give a shit. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like you that sounds like a facile thing to say, but like he doesn't give a shit. But that's where the best stuff comes out of. Like, brief anecdote, my little piddly ass making music with the guys back home, we do a bunch of takes where I sound stiff as fuck, and then when it's like, whatever, can I just do one more and try to have fun? The fun one always makes it,
Mhm.
because you can tell. It's the one where you don't give a fuck, the stakes are low, and you're in the thing to be in the thing. And that spirit runs through every single one of these songs. And I'd
Mhm.
love to get into some of these lyrics with you, because especially "Ain't That a Bitch."
Yes.
Oh my God, hilarious.
Yeah. Where's the yeah? Let me pull that. Okay. So the chorus alone, like that, the poor stay poor and the rich get rich. Nothing ever changes. Ain't that a bitch? But when you listen to the lyrics, especially verse 2, like that is when you talk about a like anti-Trump song, like verse 2 especially, like if you want to seize control of a nation, stack up the courts to serve your salvation, take the Constitution, systematically dismantle it, rebuild your agenda, sit back and admire it. Like just really, and he uses the word hegemonic. Like
Yeah.
like any of us are going to know what that means. Come on.
But it's true, like, a lot of the, like, syntax and the word choices, like, don't really fit, but not, like, in a weird discordant, like, he sounds like he's sucking wind and he can't get control of it. He finds a very, like, clever way to shoot in a word like hegemonic, and then just, like, certain lines where I'm like, "You had to take a bit of a walk to get where you were going, but I see what you did there, and I love it. Spend all our time watching a bad cartoon in an ill-fitting suit grabbing women by the poon." Like, it's funny, like, the idea that this is who Trump is not funny, but he found a way to make him ridiculous. It's the, kinda Mel Brooks Hitler type thing. And then getting what's that?
Do you want to read verse 3? I feel like the way you read verse 3 would be because that's where he really he treats that like Iran. He starts flinging them missiles all over the place.
Do you want me to do the whole thing? Because I have a specific chunk of it.
I feel like starting with the tie me to a chair under a light bulb.
Okay.
I feel like starting there and on down.
Let me get back to there. Where
Yeah.
am I? Ain't that a bitch? Because I grabbed an excerpt for it. So this is so funny to me, especially because there's kind of this unspoken rule in entertainment, and I guess in most industries, but you're not really supposed to speak bad of your contemporaries, right? You're not really allowed to, unless it's like rap where you're igniting a beef or
Yeah.
responding to a diss. Best practices, you usually don't like shit on someone you don't know, but he does in this, and I'm so glad he did, and you'll know it when you see it. They want to build an establishment where thinking is silly. Call him Hick Lib instead of Hillbilly. Mock all the things that they can't reconcile, but then they've been mocking us all for a while. They'll probably ship me off in shackles in the back of a Boeing, tie me to a chair under a light bulb glowing, put a towel on my face and let the water start flowing, inject me with drugs that are totally mind blowing, pull out my toenails, but that's okay, they're ingrowing, send me to Mars on a ship overflowing, sit me next to Katy Perry being all annoying, hogging up the whole armrest and elbowing. But if there ain't no black people on the ship, I ain't going. They're getting nervous and starting to sweat, and it's showing. Seeds of doubt are planted and sowing. They're forming roots in the streets and the grooves. Get this, learning half the battle is knowing. He compares waterboarding to sitting next to Katy Perry on the Blue Orbit flight. It's fucking awesome.
Like I really the way that he just the sense of humor in this one, like for real, is truly some of the best stuff he's ever done. It like that might be the funniest line he's ever written. Like maybe
It's so
Fruity Blues was like just kind of more irreverent than this, but like this was just directly hysterical.
hysterical. The Katy Perry line is so dick and so well deserved and so funny.
Yeah,
And just the whole owing that he made that entire verse do that, and it wasn't a gimmick.
yeah. Like that's some DMX stuff, but DMX would only use one word. And he would just rhyme it with itself.
Yeah, one word that we cannot say.
Yeah, the gentleman is what we say on this one.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. 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 So the like to me, like I feel like he could just do him in the Dark Clouds could just do anything that they want to. Like if they wanted to make a punk album, they could. If they wanted to make just a straight up metal album, they could. And I would love to hear that. I bet that would be sick because they definitely get like there's moments where you could tell that they could get heavy. I think you knew that on Sound and Fury, but as good as this band is now, I feel like if he wanted to revisit that Sound and Fury, like straight up that kind of style that he did on that album, he could have something real special with that.
I think he could. I think the interesting question would be, what does he do vocally? Because he ruptured a vocal cord. He can't get away with too much at this point.
Yeah.
He got to protect that instrument. But like, yeah, I think metal's a different animal. I can't confirm or deny that this band wouldn't be up to the task of like getting on that double bass pedal and those like screaming metal licks. Who's to say? I think Sturgill could absolutely pull it off, and the thing is, you'd like to believe that the Dark Clouds could do it because they make anything feel possible on this. Like they just find new ways, like within a song, to switch things up. Like you'll get like you'll get like a nice groove going on the bass, and then when you least expect it, to flip, we're off moving into a slightly different beat in a slightly different direction. It felt organic. It felt like it was taking place in the moment, but it didn't feel like, sometimes, again, to reference the Dead, you watch a live Dead show and you're like, oh, Jerry was hard on the heroin on this one. This could go either way. But with this, it's just like controlled chaos directed in a very funky direction. Again, the thickest bass grooves and excellent, like, technical excellence in all of the instruments. I will say, like, audio quality wise, I'm gonna have to judge it on the vinyl when it comes, because there was a little bit of a, like, muddy sounding. There's a little bit of production issue marring it just a tiny bit,
Mm-hmm.
enough that you're like, your ear notices it. It's like, this isn't like super duper. This is a little muddy, but I almost kind of love that as an aesthetic convention. It didn't keep me from enjoying it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think it's probably I can't imagine that that's not an intentional part of it as well. So it's like I think that's the kind of thing where sometimes there's mistakes that artists make and you're just like, oh, that was dumb. That makes things worse. And then I think there's things that artists do that maybe we just don't love. Because I think I'm very used to, you know, what I love about Sturgill has always been the songwriting, like the way that he structures the songs and everything like that. But it always also has been very well produced, very crisp, very clean. Even the bluegrass stuff was like very crisp and very clean. And that's like part of the appeal of listening to it, is that it's like it sounds great the louder you turn it up. So that's always the like mark of great production, is that you don't lose the quality of it the louder it gets. Like it just gets better because you hear more of it. I hear you when you say that it seems like at certain points it's like you can tell this was recorded very live. This was recorded with them like playing with each other, and I kind of like that, because at a live show, like that's how you're going to hear it too. A live show can't possibly sound as crisp and clean as a record, because you can't have a studio environment as a live show. So there's always going to be that element of, kind of, this sounds different, not because they played it differently, but because of like how it was recorded. Or maybe he missed a note here, but I think that's part of what makes it feel more alive and made this feel like it. I feel like it sounding like that just fits so seamlessly in with the whole experience of how this album rolled out.
I would much rather, yes, have the messy, living, breathing entity in front of me than, maybe it's bad habit to constantly reference the other episodes we recorded tonight, but the Bruno Mars one that I think will probably come out after this, when you get to that, you'll see what we were talking about, where something is like, not even like overproduced. That would imply there were too many elements, but just too studio, too record label, too contract, too rote, too safe, too sanitized, and just blah, convention. And then this had a weird, chaotic release because, like, obviously, Sturge had to know that, yes, someone did try to sell the record on eBay
Mm-hmm.
for like $500.
Mm-hmm.
Someone very possibly could have recorded and leaked the whole thing. Like, if a true blue audiophile got their hands on it, they could have transferred it. Or you just do a live stream playing it on your fucking turntable and have people just come chill out. Like, there's any number of outcomes. And I think he was equally okay with all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and allowed this to be kind of a unique fan dictated experience, and then popped in with fun stuff like, here's the live stream. Just kidding. But actually, it is on YouTube.
Yeah.
None of it was mean spirited and dick. It was all in the spirit of fun. And we got it early. And now everybody knows that they're getting their money's worth when their vinyl shows up.
Mm.
As a point of curiosity, what color did you get?
I got the red one.
You got the red, you saucy son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm. I think it's still that was the one that got released to the record stores. Was the red one? I think it was. At least the ones that I'd seen people had found. I don't know if he did different variants for different stores or whatever, or if they were just all red. I assume they were all the same. But I think the red one was one of the just main initial pre-order ones on the website. So I imagine there's a lot. I don't know if that was I don't know if it's limited or what the deal is with certain amounts of certain editions or whatever. I just wanted a copy. If it was
absolutely.
If it was regular black vinyl, I'd been just as happy with it.
Yeah, and because the thing is, I'm certainly not willing to pay extra, and I don't go out of my way to seek out fun colors. It's a surprise when you get one,
mm-hmm.
and it's nice, but it's just I needed to play and play well.
Yeah.
And by the time I got in there, they were down to black and translucent, and I said, well, all things being equal, we'll do translucent.
Yeah, why not?
Feel so there we
saucy. Go. Yeah. Well, were there any other things specifically with this album that you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot about what makes this so special in terms of an experience and a pure album. Mm-hmm. So hats off to JBS and the Dark Clouds.
Yeah, hats off. So
this is a 10, obviously.
Yeah, for a rating, yeah. I'm going to say for me, this was an easy 10. I kind of felt like that as soon as I listened to it. I know, obviously, I'm going to be biased towards artists that I already love. It's just we're human beings. This show will never have AI, folks. It will never use AI. That's a promise to you, folks. Like we value artistry. That's why we love Sturgill Simpson. That's why we love Johnny Blue Skies. That's why we now love the Dark Clouds. And so far, so good with this iteration of this band and this iteration of Sturgill Simpson, because it is a 10 out of 10. This is certainly going to be considered at the end of the year for me.
100%. It's a fun one real early on. Boy, are we blessed. Boy, are we blessed by Johnny Blue Skies. And the hits just keep on coming, really, because we loved Passage du Désir. We love the Ballad of Dude and Juanita. We loved Cutting Grass. We've actually covered quite a bit of Sturge on this when you think about it. And isn't that a beautiful thing? You can read more about it in the Bible. Just kidding. You'll actually find it on youtube.com/c/out on that line. Although you would be forgiven for thinking it's biblical because it's not unlike a religious experience. There's a lot in there that I think, regardless of your denomination, regardless of your religion or your spiritual preferences, there is a lot in here that will illuminate your life and motivate you and make you happy. And also, give us money, come watch the videos and give us money. You have to pay for the Google Meet somehow, folks, okay? It's not avarice, it's business. You have to subscribe. You have to click the bell so that you have notifications on when new videos drop. You have to hit the thumbs up to like the video. And you also have to leave a comment. It's so important. Hype the video, leave your comments, just get us in that algorithm, get us cooking. Because, oh, baby, we're going to toss your salad and blow your mind when you get a load of this, okay? And we're fully loaded with cream. So to that extent, youtube.com/c/out on that line, and also now on Spotify. Search Out on That Line on Spotify, and there'll be a link at the end of the video. You get the picture. There we go.
I could go for a good cannoli. Speaking of filled with cream.
Little holy cannoli.
Holy cannoli. Until next time, folks.